Hello, everybody. We are here for a Friday night hangout, Q&A, Pick My Brain. Welcome to Art Prof. We are a global art party. You may be wondering why we're not painting mountains in gouache. It's because of my stupid cable. I picked it up and it had all these things sticking out of it. I tried all these other cables and then just gave up. So it looks like I've got to buy another cable if I want to be able to use my DSLR, or got to get another webcam. Tech stuff never ends. You think you have everything ready to go, but yeah. Hopefully at some point I will be able to do a mountain painting stream, because we are doing a mountain painting workshop. By the way, there's only one spot left in this workshop. If anybody's interested, you can go down to the video description below. The workshops are 2 weeks long. You get audio critiques from me in our Discord and a 3-hour live session, and you get to work with me on voice in a small group of artists. So I'm sorry, this is all I have to offer you today in terms of painting mountains, because my cable hates me. I have to figure out another setup. Tell me in the comments, what have you been up to this week artistically? Because guess what? I got some new art supplies that I'm very excited to show all of you today. There's just so many things going on. And I just noticed this pile. Let me show you what came in the mail. We have some mineral paper. How many people have heard of mineral paper before? It's very soft and satiny. It's not as harsh and plastic-like Yupo paper is, but it definitely is really soft and smooth. I happen to like it better than Yupo paper. I feel like Yupo paper is a little bit too slick for me. I like that this has like the slightest little bit of texture, but also is very, very smooth at the same time. Also, check this out. These supplies, they're from Yasutomo. Wonderful company. They have a lot of painting supplies for brush painting and inks, but this is brand new. Mineral paper boards. And I'm very excited about this, because as much as I really like their mineral paper, it's very thin. And so if you want to do something that has any physical quality into the surface, this is not very good. But the mineral art boards, I believe this was invented for me, because I get the soft satiny mineral paper surface, but it's on a board. They never had these before. And so guess what? The other material that I got is a silver point and mineral paper kit. This has the silver point stylus. Show you guys what that's like. Oh wait, I didn't open it yet. Okay, let me show you the one that I did open. Maybe I should keep this for the tutorial or something. Oh wait, where? Oh, it's this one. Okay, so Yasutomo, they sent me these two silver point styluses, and I believe they're different sizes. This one's 2 millimeter, and this one is 1 millimeter. They also sent me these refills. They're very funny looking. I think they look like little light bulbs. I like that cute little container that they're in. But these are specifically for these pens. You can't use them for any other type of silver point stylus. And I did shoot a silver point tutorial with Andrew Raftery, my former printmaking professor. That is coming very soon, and he has a totally different way. But if you don't want to bother making your own stylus or preparing your own ground, this is probably the quickest way for you to just pick up silver point and just start drawing, because his method, it's not complicated, but you definitely have to have certain supplies to make it happen. But I'm very excited to try this. This is awesome. I believe that Yasutomo made this especially for me. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Brian says, I got to watch that I wasn't nominated on Plein Air magazine after receiving tons of teasers in my email folder. I also went to my oil paint art class and finished a painting. That sounds very productive, more productive than I have been this week. And bummer that you didn't get nominated, but you know something, since I've been working on these drawings to prepare for a grant application, some of you may have seen that I'm going to be applying to the Utah Artist Fellowship. This has been on my mind a lot because people will oftentimes come into the Discord, ask questions about this. And as somebody who has sat on committees for exhibitions and also grants, it is so subjective who gets in. And I think sometimes people worry that, oh, I didn't get into the show, it must be because my work is bad. It's not true. People like certain pieces for very different reasons, and it usually has nothing to do with the quality of your work. It's sometimes, honestly, I feel like they should just pull names out of a hat. And sometimes you're up against a committee that wants to have things a certain way. And tell me in the comments, how many of you here have entered a juried show or a competition or entered a grant or residency, something that you've applied to in the past, and what was your experience with it? Because I understand the impulse that, okay, if I didn't get something, it must mean I'm bad, but it's not true. There was one time I judged for something, I'm not going to say where, but I thought this was absurd. We had, oh my gosh, it was like hundreds of submissions that we had to go through. And I think there were like 5 of us on the committee. And so we actually had the real artwork there, and they would hold up the artwork and we look at it for not even a minute. And so they gave us these paddles and we had to say yes, no, or, oh, there was no maybe. It was just yes or no. Okay, so we go through all those, and there are a bunch of gold awards, which are the top awards, and then there are these silver awards. And so we did all the stuff, and you know something? The coordinator came back and he said, you guys didn't give out enough gold awards. You need to give out more. And we were like, what? These are the decisions that we made. And apparently they wanted more people to win gold. And so we ended up having to bump up a lot of people just to fulfill whatever number he was looking for. So weird stuff like that happens a lot in these various competitions. So just keep that in mind. Selena says, applied to 2 juried shows, they overlapped time-wise, got accepted to both, and had to withdraw from one. Certainly, your life circumstances can determine whether you're able to participate or not. Siska, mark making now on thin different papers, using for sketchbook and collage work. Slate, just got let out of work early. Awesome. After this, oh gosh, the bread fairy, she brought over these cakes that look like moss. Let me see if I can pull them up today. I don't know that I posted them in the Discord. I'll put them in the general chat and we can take a look at that. Because remember, everybody, you can hang out in the Discord. And I would like to take a look at what is happening in here and give some people some shout outs because we have people doing some pretty cool things, many group learning opportunities that maybe some people don't know about yet. Okay, so let me come into general. I'm going to post some of the bread fairy. They're really funny. She really likes doing these Trump loyal foods. We did one where she made these cookies and they look like potatoes. They look so real. It was hilarious. But this is, I can't believe she did this. Look at this. This is a chocolate cookie, and inside of it, she put a piece of chocolate so it melted. Oh, it was so good. And then you can see better here all of the quote moss that she put in. So the moss is actually cake. And then she put in a little bit of green frosting. This made me laugh so hard. She never fails to surprise us, even though we know how fantastic she is already. CL has been organizing art supplies. Angela, tiny watercolor paintings, aiming for 100. Oh boy, I hope that they're very tiny. Manette says, haven't been creating much art. Work has been very busy. I've been reading a lot. When I do anything creative, I've been using a coloring book. A lot of people find coloring books to be very relaxing to do. I know there's this whole genre of adult coloring books now that didn't really exist before, which is really cool. I'm all for anybody picking up a pencil to make colors and make marks. I just think we need more of that. I wish that carrying around a sketchbook was the same thing as carrying around a notebook, so that even people who are not practicing artists would have that opportunity to put things down on paper, even if it's just a bunch of squiggles. It can be really nice. Hi, Trent. Trent is one of the moderators in the Discord. You've been with us for many years now, which is amazing. And you should all check out, Trent has a wonderful YouTube channel. I'm going to give you a shout out right now, Trent. Hope that's okay. And his channel is called Technically Trent. And he's got some really fantastic tutorials on Affinity Designer, all kinds of other Affinity products. Yeah, here he is. So if you guys want intelligent, thoughtful content about software, this is where I would go. Also, a lot of stuff about print on demand. I love showing off our community, so go check out Trent's channel. George says, doing some sketching, spent most of the week helping my friend with the itinerary for a trip to Europe. Wait a second, you don't get to go, George? I would be very sad if I didn't have the opportunity to go. Slate says, I submit to open calls and the occasional competition quite often. I've had a huge mix of experiences from fantastic to horrible. Just be wary and always consider shipping if applicable. I have done a few shows where I did ship the work, and I had this one time where the person was just insufferable. For some reason, they could not figure out how to get the work back to me. And they wrote me this really frustrating email that was like, oh, yes, I see your painting in a box and it's sitting there in storage and I don't really know what I was so mad. So for that reason, I'm a little bit past. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but after that situation, I was like, oh, okay, I'll do it if it's like a really incredible exhibition opportunity. But after that, I was like, okay, I'm not going to bother because that was just such a pain in my butt. Lisa says, I applied for a show once. It was stressful, but it pushed me to try harder than normal. So it was good. I think a lot of it, oftentimes it's about seeing your work in a different context. Because context to me is everything. you could have the exact same painting in 2 different galleries and get opposite experiences. Or if you have the same painting and it's at an art fair versus a sale that is for, I don't know, RISD alumni. They have a craft sale for RISD alumni. It's Juried. You have to submit to get in and be a RISD alumni. Mia's done that many times before. And it's incredible how different it is. So actually, let's do a survey right now. Tell me in the chat, what are the different places you have put your work in? Okay, it could be anything. For example, you could say, all right, I have posted my stuff in the show and tell channel, which is in our Discord. And this is a really fun channel because you'll see people doing all kinds of different things. For example, here is a sketch of a dog, and this is from Petra. We also have, I believe, a digital piece. This is from Rick BW. This is a really fun channel because it's not a critique channel. It's a place for people to share and see a big amount of work, and also to support each other and leave some nice comments. So here's Salinas. I was just chatting with you at Open Studios yesterday. After a glass still life, crocheting a giant cactus. Oh my gosh, this is really, really funny. Look at all those little dots. So for example, this is one place that people have shown their stuff, or maybe you showed it to a family member, or maybe it was in a crafts fair. Maybe it was featured on a website, or it was in a gallery. Whatever different contexts you've shown your work in, and I'll tell you in a minute where I have shown my work as well, because context is everything. I didn't really understand that when I got out of art school, because I just assumed in art school, well, we were all at art school. And so it's not like I was talking to the population. It was like, okay, everything that we saw or made in art school was at art school. That was the one context we were in. Maybe people did other things in the summers, but that was pretty much it. And I didn't realize when I got out of school that where your work is presented, oftentimes the audience that is there can determine how it's received. If I showed some of these, some of you guys have seen, I've been working on, these are crayon drawings done on a hard copy printout of the drawing. I think I have an example here. Yes. Okay. Also, look at this, you guys. There's cadmium red oil paint. It's all over my printout, and now it's everywhere. It's on my keyboard. It's on my mouse. Like, what is this? Okay, so this is the original drawing, but I printed it out on a sheet of paper. And then this drawing has the crayon that I drew over it. And so this is a really fast way for me to figure out how I want to do the final piece. Then I can mess around here and explore different options. So if I had these drawings at a craft fair, like let's say RISD Craft, which is where a lot of people are selling things and people come, it's a really fun event, but this would not do well at the RISD Craft Fair. It's the wrong venue. I also have had pieces in offices where people were very uncomfortable with some of my portraits. It just really depends on the context. And I think that's very hard to understand until you've had the experience of seeing how much the reception can be. Because there was a gallery, it was at Babson College. Oh no, maybe it was, I remember the gallery. It's called Hollister Gallery, and now I can't remember which college it is. Anyway, it's some college in Massachusetts. And the gallery wasn't enclosed. It was just part of this big room. And so you didn't have to go into the gallery. Like, you would just walk past it. And there were some people that didn't really like my portraits. So that wasn't really a great fit for that. Yes, I know, Angie. It's really bad. You should have seen when I was at Rizio, like all these easels and drawing horses. Oh gosh, that was a circus. Let's just say that. Courtney says, I really don't show my work, and that's fine. I don't think anybody should ever feel pressure to share in a place where they don't feel that they'll be supported. And that's why for a lot of people, I encourage them to join our Discord, because in our Discord, we have so many people, staff, moderators, who are around to make sure people aren't jerks. And so if you're worried about sharing your work for the first time, our Discord is a really great place to do that, because if anybody is a jerk, we boot them fast. They do not last very long at all. And so this is a really safe place for people to share without feeling the competition of, let's say, social media. Brian says, showed my work in a shopping mall, county board office, gallery, and a restaurant. Love seeing all these different places. George entered photographs in a show at the local library, group show at a gallery space where I worked. Sketchpaws showed my work at a college fundraiser auction sale. And we also have Shara, who says, I had 2 interviews for MFA programs last week, including Yale. I'm curious how important interviews are in the admissions process. Well, first of all, congratulations. That's amazing that you got those interviews, because some of you probably have heard me talk about how competitive these programs are. And it's not necessarily even about the work being super competitive. It's just that there's like no numbers to match the number of applicants. I think that in some places you're competing for 3 spots. A lot of these programs are very small and they have like 900 applications. So they're extremely competitive. I don't know that interviews are necessarily make or break, but I would assume that they are very important, because I just think when you meet somebody, it becomes pretty clear fast if the person is really focused and dedicated. The other thing is, I know a lot of artists feel like it's unfair that, oh, I have to speak about my work, or I have to present myself and be articulate. And you don't have to be that way in every art context, but in an MFA, you do. You do have to be well-spoken. You do have to be able to talk about contemporary art and your practice and how you want to visualize your course of study. I don't have specifics about any particular program in terms of like, oh, how do they weigh it or anything. But I can tell you, if I was on the committee and I was interviewing somebody, I think I would know pretty fast if that person was a viable candidate or not, because a lot of people look great on paper, but can really stumble at an interview. And I understand it's very nerve-wracking to have any type of interview, especially for these programs, which are so competitive. But I can also tell you, we do have a page on our website, which is about MFA interviews, and we provide sample questions that they typically ask, certain topics. So if you just go to artprof.org and you just type MFA interview into the search bar, you'll find that page. So hopefully that helps you, and congratulations. Brandon says, I've found showing my work can be scary and therapeutic. It's a nice reminder that I criticize my work more than others do. We are our own worst critic in so many situations. What I find refreshing about sharing my work with other people, they just have a totally different take. I've never shown my work to somebody and had them think the exact same thing that I was thinking. It's always something different. They always notice some other thing that never would have occurred to me. And that's one of the best things about getting some eyes on your work. The other thing is that we have our critique channels in the Discord, and those are great places to get support. But one misconception about the critique process, a lot of people think that critique is only talking about the things that can be improved. But actually, I think some of the most helpful critique comments are when somebody tells me, oh, I really like the way you did your brushwork in these mountains. And for a long time, I'm looking at the painting and I'm like, oh, I don't think they're that good. And when somebody comes to me and says, actually, I really like that, that's extremely important. So that's the thing about the critique process, is it has to be both. It's about identifying, okay, here are the things that are really working well. And then here are the things that should be improved. And everybody has a completely different opinion. Oh, thank you, George, for doing the research. I can't remember my own gallery shows. CL says, I'm really excited about the drawings you are doing. It speaks to me on a visceral level, and I love drawing or painting fabric folds. I believe that we are in the minority, CL Jeans, because I'm the same way. I love drawing fabric, and everybody in art school thought I was insane because drapery is difficult. And I love painting. I love getting lost in all the folds and everything. And these are very different. If I show all of you guys this one, for example, you can see it has moments of tension, like in the mouth area. But then this whole left-hand side has a lot of flow to it. And it's very different than, say, this one. This one really looks a lot more like plastic wrap. There's this really dramatic point of tension here. So very different types of qualities. And if you missed it, here are my very creepy reference photos. I'm like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm insane because I have images like this under cloth, under plastic. Yeah, I know, it's really, really weird. Thank goodness. I hope you guys understand the impulse behind doing things like that. See, there goes the klutz. Of course, all my blue tape falling apart. There, let's put this back together so it looks a little bit nicer. Well, it's not really nice, but anyway. So if people missed it, what I'm doing is finishing these drawings that I thought I had finished in 2012. I picked them back up in 2022, and I never got back to them. I only did like 6, but the grant is due next Friday. And I thought to myself, okay, I think I can do it. It's a little tight, but I totally think I can go and scrape up those 4 drawings and have the application in. And remember, everybody, feel free to ask me questions, pick my brain about anything, because while there's a wealth of information out there, I think there is nothing like getting an answer directly from somebody that is specific to your experience. A reminder, if you do want to ask me a question, please make sure that you type question in all caps, and that'll make it easier for me to answer. Or if I miss your question, feel free to type that again. Randy says, have you physically seen those cloth marble sculptures? I'm very curious about how they get those effects. Yes, I did see one. It was at the Getty Museum, which is in Los Angeles. And let me show you guys a photo of that one, because it was really eerie. It's the strangest thing because it's concrete marble that is opaque. However, the look of it is really unusual. Oh, here it is. I found it. Okay. There I am. Oh, wait, it's not the one I thought. Shoot. Did I see one at a different museum? Sorry about that. But this is a pretty cool way to analyze how they're doing the drapery. And a lot of it has to do with something called undercuts. If you guys go in, does everybody see this little spot where it's like they push the tool upwards? This is called an undercut, okay? And these are what you have to look for when you cast a sculpture, because undercuts are the types of things that sometimes the mold material, if you're using, say, silicone, sometimes it doesn't get into the undercut and you end up with a big bubble. And so there are certain things you can do to prevent that from happening. But that is something I always look at whenever I go to a museum and I look at a sculpture. I'm always looking for those undercuts, because here's another one. The undercuts are usually what creates drama in the form. And one thing that I've noticed in a lot of sculptures when I'm teaching sculpture is people don't dig in deep enough. They keep the sculpture a little bit too shallow. And so that takes away from the feeling of volume that you want to have in all of the pieces. Ryan wants to know, have you listened to Goat's Head Soup by the Rolling Stones? I've been listening, and your drawings look like that album cover. No, I haven't. I don't really listen to the Rolling Stones. Like, I know who they are, but I never got in the habit of listening to them. They're okay. Sorry. If you're a big Rolling Stone fan, apologies. Selena says, do you have a video on grants or any tips for finding ones that are a good fit for you? Guess what, everybody? We do have a live stream coming up, because people have been asking me a lot of questions about that, grants in general. And so we did schedule a discussion with me and Lauren, and I think it's later in March. Here it is, Tuesday, March 11th. It's coming up really soon. And so Lauren and I are the two people on staff who have experience applying for grants and residencies and things like that. We also have, in case some of you guys missed it, we do have a page. Just type artist grants into the search bar. And this is a huge listing of different grants. You'll find that it's actually hard to find a grant that you're eligible for, because they usually target a very specific demographic. Like you can see here, this one is a fellowship for comics. This one is for Philadelphia artists. This is emergency grants. This is a photography grant. And then the ones that are more open-ended, that are large, those are extremely competitive. So something like the Guggenheim is really, really hard to get. The Rome Prize, which is a one-year grant to study in Rome and do your own practice, that's very, very competitive. So that's the first thing you have to do, is you have to make sure that you're actually eligible, because the Utah Fellowship Grant that I'm applying for, you have to be 25 or older, and you're not allowed to be a student. So that's the most important thing, is you have to really look at the fine print in terms of eligibility, and then you have to see what they accept. There are some places that will say no abstract art. For example, the Elizabeth Greenshields Foundation, that is a grant that is extremely specific. They say you may not submit abstract art. Art has to be representational and figurative. So it really comes down to just reading everything very comprehensively to make sure you don't spend time in an application that you're not actually eligible for. Jen says, the Art Institute of Chicago has an exhibit coming up with Roman sculptures. Oh, okay. Who here, and I know this is a TikTok thing, who here likes the Roman Empire? I liked the Roman Empire before the TikTok meme. I liked it before the movie Gladiator came out in 2000. I'm so into the Romans. I love their warts and all approach to busts, because the ancient Greeks, they wanted everything to be perfect and idealized. And the Romans were like, nope, we're going to show you all our wrinkles. They're really extraordinary busts. Gosh, I want to go to the Art Institute of Chicago. I haven't been there since 1993, because I did a summer program when I was in high school there, but I was in high school. I spent a lot of time doing nothing. I mean, I worked on stuff, but it was a lot of just messing around. I'd like to go now as a more clear-headed adult artist. Brandon says, what made you want to work on the drawings again instead of starting fresh? Lauren is the person that got me into this concept of going back to old pieces. She had this phrase, which was cannibalize your work, where you go back, you find old pieces, and you basically manipulate them very dramatically. In some cases, you take a drawing and you rip it up and you make a collage. And so I was doing some of those as sketchbook prompts just to mess around. And in retrospect, I think what got me to go back to those pieces, let me show you guys what some of the portraits look like, because it's from a project that I did, gosh, a really long time ago. I think 2012. So this is on my website. This series was 50 portraits. This is all mixed in. Like, this is a sketch. This is a beeswax mask. This is a mezzotint. But these are the original drawings. And I think what bothered me about them, I really did not like that they were too close to the reference photos. I felt like I didn't manipulate it very much, because I did have a colleague at RISD, because I had a show of those portraits. You know when somebody tells you something and you know they're right, but in your head, you're in total denial about what they said? This is what happened. So she came to my show and said to me, these look too much like photographs. I was at my show. I wasn't going to launch into something in that moment or have some kind of big discussion, but that stuck on me and I never forgot it. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to make these not like photographs. I'm going to really transform them into something completely different. And then I was looking at those veiled busts in sculpture and it just all clicked. I was very excited about that. And it's also fun because, you know something, when you go back to an old piece, it's not that much work. Because these, when I go in and I scrape those drawings, it's not going to be a lot of work. I mean, maybe it'll be like 2 hours or something, but not remotely as much work as it was in the beginning. So I am very excited to take care of that. And by the way, everybody, in case you missed it, I would love to go to LA and share with all of you stuff that I can get access to at a museum that's not open to the public. Tell me in the comments if those are videos you've enjoyed. I know they're not our most popular videos, but I loved going to the Gardner Museum, talking to their conservation team, looking at all of their tools. I interviewed the manuscripts curator at the Getty Museum. And you know what's funny? Jordan and I, last time I was there, we never made it to the Huntington Library, which made me very sad because they have a rare books collection. And I didn't get to go. And I missed LACMA. There are a whole bunch of things I didn't get to do last time. And Jordan and Kathy are getting married. And so that's why I'm going to LA at the end of March. The whole staff is going to be there except for Mia. And I could just go in and out real fast for the wedding. But I would love to spend 8 days filming, because the other thing is that Lauren has never done a museum visit with me before. And I think she and I will have a lot of fun because we never agree about things. So I really want to do it. But as some of you guys know, it is not cheap to travel. And in LA, you have to get a rental car and all these different things. So if you guys would like to contribute to make this possible, that would be so wonderful if you guys can do that. Now, it's not guaranteed I will get all the funding that I need to make this happen. So just note that if I don't get enough, your contribution will go towards our very pathetic shoestring budget. I'm a bad business person, you guys, but this is something I really want to do, is share all these things. I want to go to the museum print rooms where they can just put a print in front of you, no glass. It's the most intimate experience you can have with a print. So I'm really hoping I can bring more of that to all of you in some future videos. Courtney says, love that you are collaborating with your work over time. Best of luck. It's so different to come back to something many years later. Perhaps I never did it before because I was too young, but there's a 10-year difference between what I did with the first drawings, the scraping, and now coming back to it again. I've also changed because the last time I did it, I didn't shoot my own references. I think I shot them like way, way later. So actually some of the earlier drawings in 2022, I was using some of the drapery from the veiled sculptures. These are very different because I now have my own references, and so I can really control. So for me, the big difference between these new drawings is that a lot of the passages of the drapery are more taut. There's way more tension in these portraits than in the other ones, which I think is pretty interesting. At the same time, though, I also wanted to get that flow. So a reminder to everybody, if you have a question for me, type question in caps, and I'm happy to answer your question. And I'm also happy to get recommendations for LA, assuming I can get the funding. This is where I'm like, God, why didn't I care about being rich when I was younger? I probably would be doing more things now artistically, but it's what happens when it's just, I don't know, not on your top priority of things to do in life. So tell me in the comments, how many people here have come back to old pieces? Why did you choose to do that? And what was the experience like? Because I'm loving it. Like, seriously, one of the biggest pluses is I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like done. I just have to add a few things. So like, you want to be really lazy, going back to an old piece is really good. And I also like to think about, okay, well, who was I in 2012? I was a very different person back then. I had been teaching at RISD for 5 years. So I was still fairly at the beginning of my teaching career. And I did not have the exhibition history that I have now. And so I feel older and wiser and more willing to take a risk, because I'm always pushing people to take artistic risks. But guess what? It's so much easier to give other people advice than to take it yourself. Suna says, I once put a painting away for 6 years. And then when I brought it back out, I finished it in like a week. It was the first painting I ever sold. Yes to coming back to things. Oh, that is so cool. I love that you did that, because really we can rejuvenate a lot of our pieces or have them turn into something else entirely all together. And that's where working on these drawings, I've had a lot of fun because I feel like I'm surprising myself. How many of you here have done that, where you make a piece and you're like, wow, I didn't think I could do that. Or, wow, I didn't think I would make work like that. That to me is the best thing. And that's one of the reasons I don't go into a lot of my artwork with expectations, because I like the surprise. I like not knowing exactly where things are going to go. Mike is asking, what's a good way to start still life painting drawing for beginners, like outlines and colors? Okay, my recommendation, well, let me ask you a question before I answer, Mike. The question I have for you is, are you doing this on your own? In which case you can set up your own still life. And I think that is critical to have that experience. setting up and arranging your own still life. Tell me in the comments, how many of you guys here have done a still life in any context? How many of you here have set up your own still life in person, so it's right in front of you, and painted from that? Because I do see a lot of people painting still lives from a photo, and there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes that's a really good entry point, a good way to get started. But to me, so much of the still life process is picking the objects, looking at the colors and how they look together, how to arrange them, because that's essentially composition. You're doing it not in the drawing, but in the still life. So to me, the creative part of a still life is actually with the objects, picking objects that you think are interesting. I did a still life, there's a tutorial on it. I really wanted to paint a lobster because I was like, oh, it's so cool. It's got all these weird textures on it. It's this beautiful red color. And so if you're willing to put in a little bit more time, that is, to me, the way to learn the most quickly about still life. And then the other thing I would say is, tell me if you're doing it in black and white or in color, because that does make a difference in terms of how to get started. Randy says, love looking at old sketches and expanding on the ideas with new art. Lisa says, does digging stuff from your trash can count as revisiting old pieces? Maybe, let's say you have to have been away from it for a year, maybe? I don't know. You get extra brownie points, though, if it's been a decade or more. Oh, this is cool. Courtney says, cutting watercolor into strips and assembling it as a woven new work. I love it. Giving the pieces a new life. Salinas, I do it with sculpture. My process is always evolving and interconnecting. Started on a mermaid piece from when I was 13. Oh, wow, you have me beat. I definitely have not done anything like that in the past. Thank you so much, Tara, for the super sticker. We so much appreciate your support, which we continue to need to support all of our free content. John says, good timing. I've been thinking about changing up the still life by drawing and painting a series of objects hanging from my closet, jackets and travel bags. Oh, I love that. Well, because a lot of times with still life, we think, oh, it's on a table, but having it hanging, very different visual, and putting it in a closet. See, that's where still life gets really exciting, because I think there is this assumption, okay, if I'm going to paint a still life, it's like apples and pears and a vase. Certainly still life can be that. You can do amazing pieces with that. However, some people, their reaction is, oh God, that's so boring, I don't want to do that. So don't paint a beach. Go find something that you really love. I've had people put all kinds of things into their paintings that are not even close to a beach and done absolutely beautiful work. Yeah, Butter says, setting up my own still life was athletic. It took forever. I was sweating in the dead of winter. Okay, well, you got to follow up, Butter, and tell everybody how it was worth it, because I saw your still life images in the Discord because you were in the Tracks channel. And so I can attest that I'm guessing you definitely had a great learning experience. Let's take a look at couple of places, because people have been talking to us about opportunities for group learning, because I know a lot of people will sometimes come to the Discord and they will want an art buddy or somebody that they can study with. We don't have the means to match people like that. I'm not interested in doing that. I think this a little bit too complicated and would get really dicey very quickly. However, I want people to notice that we do have these 3 channels. Gosh, if I can find them. Here, Art Prof challenges. We have the 2500 challenge, 2500 challenge. You can see a lot of people here doing it. Jordan is the one responsible. And so if you go into the pinned messages, you can see this is the prompt, certain number of heads and hands and arms. We do have a page on our website, which explains exactly the 2500 challenge. We have a draw along that Kat and Jordan did. And so this is a really great challenge if you're somebody who wants to get better at anatomy. We can see here, this is by Lisa P. We also have Henriette/Henry. And this is really fun because you just go in here, you work together, you get to see other people's stuff, you can hold yourselves accountable. And I really like learning in a group. Sure, it's nice to have an art buddy, but to me, it's more fun when there's a whole group of people. I think a lot of you know about the Art Dares. Today is the last day to submit. So you guys can see there are a bunch of people up here who have been sharing and submitting their artwork in the Art Dares channel. So you can see here, I put this in the pinned messages. These are the things. You tag me, you give me your statement, and that's how you enter the Art Dare. But this is just so fun because you're all working on the same subject for 1 month, and you really get to see a lot of different pieces, but you learn together. And then the other one is Art Prof Tracks. So this is people who are working on a track, and those are a sequence of video lessons and prompts. It's on our website. So let me show you guys exactly where that is. And the tracks are really nice because they're a place that gives you a sequence of prompts to work through, and we give you everything you need to do it. So if you guys come to the expressive drawing track, you can see every track has multiple lessons. You can see this is a page which is learning how to loosen up by drawing a moving figure. And so then you go to the lesson and we have the prompt, we have examples. And so the tracks, we have many of them, and you don't have to do the same track as anybody, but just the idea that you guys are working on these together. Like these are by Butter, who was doing these roses. Butter is here live in the chat. And so I find these spaces very motivating. It's very safe. Like I worry about buddy systems and stuff like that, but these are great learning spaces. And then of course we have things like our workshops if you want to actually get feedback from me on voice and to get audio critiques as well. So my suggestion for people is that if you want to find a good learning environment, do it in a group, because I really think we learn way more when we learn in a group. Tell me in the comments, how many of you guys have learned in a group environment, maybe in a class in person, maybe one of our workshops, maybe in the Discord, because I just think you learn so fast when you see other people doing similar prompts using the same material. You can see our workshops. For example, this one's oil painting. And so when you have a group of people who are all studying oil painting, you get to trade things. Like every workshop we do, the fun, well, not the fun part, but one of the fun parts is we get to see everybody's supplies. We say, okay, everybody take a photo of your brushes. Let's see what brand oil paint you're using. And so you can learn all those things without having to buy every single paint set that exists. We also have Ryan, who says, recently I took out this watercolor of Jardinias, put it on my piano. Every day when I pass by, I can see what it needs. Maybe it's self-improvement. I think some pieces, we need time with them. This is fun. Brian says, my own still life. Go to the farmer's market, buy food, bring them back, photograph them, and eat them eventually, I will assume. Yeah, so fun. I love farmers markets. It's one of my favorite things to do. Anytime that I'm traveling, I always want to see the local fruit markets. Brandon has a question. How do you know you're tackling things that scare you enough? I've been drawing subjects that intimidate me every week, but not sure if I'm doing enough. My advice is there's no such thing as enough. It's however much you want to push yourself. For example, I don't want to draw things that scare me all the time. I can only handle that now and then because every work I'm doing is challenging me in a different way. These pieces are not difficult for me because they're portraits. I have so much experience with portraits that is the easier part. I'm also going back to a technique that is well established, and I know what the work is about. And so there are all these things about these drawings which are not difficult, which would be in other work. But trust me, I'm still finding challenges that are smaller, maybe more nuanced, but I just don't think there's a certain amount. I think what I would recommend is if you want something that really is concrete, I would get some feedback on that because there's no rules for how much is too much. And really, you don't know until you talk to somebody else. So my recommendation, come into the Discord, talk to us about it, post your work in show and tell. That's the only way to get a surefire answer because unfortunately here, I'm not seeing anybody's work. And so it's hard for me to give really specific feedback that's going to help your situation. Thank you, Butter, who says, I've learned so much from the tracks, given me a deep learning I'm craving. Come join us. I cannot recommend it enough. And yes, we did not sponsor that post. Thank you so much, Butter. Lisa's asking, how do you get an unusual angle of a still life in real life? I'm too old to sit on the floor. It depends on what's comfortable. I think it would be interesting to put a still life on the floor, do a bird's eye view of a still life, or maybe put it on a higher shelf, or have something that's going off the side of the table. It is tricky. In real life, you don't have a million options, but I was telling people in the gouache workshop, which is going to be tomorrow, the live session, about how seeing color is much more difficult in a photo. People always assume that the photo is the easiest way to go, but color is very hard to see in a photo. It almost always just flattens. In real life, oh my gosh, you can see so much color. People ask me about how to mix flush tones and how do you know that it's not just all these brown tones. And it's looking in real life, because in real life, you will see green on the face and you will see blue, but you will not see that in a photo. Yeah, John says, I'm a lot more motivated in a group environment. Okay, sounds like Brittany did some still life in art school. Awesome. Ryan says, I have a weekly portrait group I attend, and even though it's not instructional, I've learned so much from the other members just by talking with them, and we also critique each other's pieces after. And I understand everybody. It's intimidating to join any type of group, whether it's online or in person, but the most important thing is that you're with people who want to see you succeed. I want to see you succeed. I really do. And if you come into the Discord, that's where it can happen. Now, if you guys want to have more attention from staff, from the TAs, and from me, and if you want critiques from me, Art Club is another option inside our Discord. There are different tiers, $30 a month, $60 a month, and this is where you have access to voice sessions, because it's super fun to share in the private, not the private, the public parts of the Discord. But if you want really specific advice and critiques, this is the place to go. Thank you, Jen. I love how we have testimonials here. And again, I did not pay Jen to say that. Janae says, I bought a 6-pack canvas. Whoa, 30 by 40? Okay, that, good deal. Very smart move there. Yeah, sorry. You guys, my cable died. It was like really sad. Like I just started using it a couple months ago after buying it and letting it sit there for way too long. And it's like, it's got like things sticking out of it. I was like, okay, I can't deal. We're just going to have a hangout. So sorry about that. Hopefully I can get that cable replaced pretty soon and we'll be back in business. Oh, I love this point from Jen. I agree with Courtney. I've been enjoying watching your progress, Butter. That's the thing, is you get invested in each other's progress. I tell people in the workshops that because I'm seeing incremental updates and I'm watching something be created in real time, I mean, I feel like it's a tiny TV show where I'm like, oh, what happened? What's going to happen next week? It's just so fun. And you learn a lot, because on social media, you're just seeing the finished piece. You don't get to see what led up to it. And quite frankly, I oftentimes find the behind more interesting than the finished artwork. Actually, tell me in the comments, those of you who look at stuff in the Discord or on social media, what do you think is interesting to see? Do you like seeing the final? Do you like seeing the beginning, the work in progress? Do you like to see the whole thing, which is easier done in the workshops because it's a very particular environment, but in the Tracks channel and the Art Tours channel, people work on it all month, and you do get to see how people develop things. This is one of my favorite things. Jen says, that's why Open Studios helps me, gets me in the mindset to work and learn, even if I don't have anything to say. I mean, you guys, it helped me. So Open Studios, if you don't know, is part of Art Club. So that's where we are on Voice, 2-hour session. Everybody's working on their own personal projects. And I was a little behind. So I spent time, was it this one? I can't remember. Anyway, I finished one of these at Open Studios. I was like so happy that I had that time carved out, because if I hadn't had it, I don't think I would have done it. I probably would have had to do this on Saturday, in which case it's taking away time when I could be watching a Hugh Jackman movie. Greatest Showman is on Disney Plus. It makes me happy that it's there. But yes, I think that's a big thing. If you aren't enrolled in a degree program or something like that, a lot of people do want a little bit of accountability, because other times you feel like you're just working in a vacuum and it doesn't feel great. It feels good to have somebody see your stuff. That's a big part of it, for people to see it and to acknowledge it. I think that's what frustrates artists oftentimes online. They feel like, oh, nobody's seeing it, nobody's acknowledging it. And so in the Discord, when you get a 1-sentence comment, it means a lot. I totally feel that. So yes, come hang out with us. We're super cool in the Discord. And it's okay if you guys are worried, no pressure to join at all. But I will tell you, we have wonderful moderators. I'm in there helping people. We have other community members. So if you come in and you're not sure what's going on, you just ask and somebody will come in and help you, or you can @ moderator and then one of us will jump in. Lisa says, it's wonderful when you see your fellow Discord members improve or when they gain confidence. Oh, it's my favorite thing, watching everybody grow like that. Yeah, like Butter says, I'm super shy. It's been big to learn to share, especially as a beginner. Such a welcoming place. I know it's so hard. Like if you're just starting and you've never really talked to anybody about your work, I understand totally. It's like, ugh. But what I tell people to do in the Discord, just lurk, just join, read things, don't participate, just look at what people are doing. And once you feel like, oh, okay, maybe I'm ready, just post something and show and tell. That's it. And sometimes that's a good way. And if it makes you too uncomfortable, you have to do it again. Selena says, I like seeing the whole process. Feels like watching a human versus a machine. Well, I think we all have gotten our taste. I mean, I don't like that we have to have the word human before artist. Ugh, don't even get me started in all that AI stuff. But I just can't believe we're even talking about that type of thing. Starving Artist says, bought Yupo paper this week to experiment with, as in granulating watercolor video. like the video, I'm stuck with the ooh and ah stage of playing with colors. How do you, quote, fix the blots? I think the answer, well, the question rather, that you should ask yourself is, do I want to make something that is recognizable as an image? For example, do I want to make a landscape, or do I want to do a still life? Whatever it is that you want to do. And then whether you want to find a way for the granulating watercolor to fit inside that structure. My feeling about the granulating watercolor is because there is such a lack of control when you put it together, is that it's probably a great place to explore how representation and abstraction can meet. Because certainly we can say, okay, this painting is all abstract. This painting is all representational. It's a picture of a red beetle. But I think it's really interesting when you have paintings that are a little bit both. That, okay, parts of it emerge, there's a praying mantis, but then the other part's a little bit more abstract. And to think about the sequence, I mean, maybe you start drawing and you draw the beetle, so it's really clear, and then you paint the watercolor over it, and then you do a little bit more with the colored pencil. Or maybe you start with abstract strokes, and then inside the abstract strokes, you pull out something that is more representational. Okay, Starving Artist following up. How did you finish the color blots so they didn't smear? Some of the organic blot effects are gorgeous. Oh, I know, they're so addictive. It's like a bag of potato chips, like really hard to walk away. I don't think I put anything over them. Are you talking about like adding a varnish or anything like that? The ones that I used, well, I painted them on Yupo paper in case people missed that stream. In which case, I guess it's like any other watercolor where, in theory, if any water got on it, it would get ruined. And I've never put anything on top of Yupo. Maybe somebody here has put varnish or something on top of Yupo paper. I've never done that before. Yupo paper, I really have not used it very much. I've used it in a few streams, but nothing where I feel like I really understand the distinctive properties of that. Yeah, I don't know how that would react. I guess in general, I'm not a big fan of putting varnish on things like that. Like, I did the gouache painting marathon, and I did one on a wood panel, and that one really felt like it needed something on top. Probably I'd try something like Dorland's wax. Some people have told me you could just buff it into the surface. And then I know other people have used like an acrylic spray varnish or something like that. But I also had a gouache painting that was on cold pressed water paper where I just was like, I don't really feel like I'm going to put anything on top of this because I love paper and don't want anything to get in the way of that. So it's, I know it's very tricky. There's just so many materials, different things that we can combine or not combine. That's where I really think the group learning environment is important, because I didn't know about Dorland's wax. It was people in the Discord that told me about it, and that was the only reason that I knew about it. I had not bought it, although I did get that cold wax medium for oil paint, and people told me you can use it for the same thing. So yeah, world's greatest research team is what I'm thinking about our Discord. Remember, everybody, we are doing registration still for upcoming March and April workshops that you guys can check out. Again, these are 2-week-long experiences. You get audio critiques from me. You also get a 3-hour live session, and you get to work in a small group of artists on voice. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.